We ended up in court over a name. Not custody, not money. 4 letters on a birth certificate. I used to think family drama meant awkward holidays and passive-aggressive casseroles. I learned the hard way that the right people can turn something as simple as naming your baby into a loyalty test that cracks marriages like glass. If you'd told me that at 22 weeks pregnant, I would have laughed in your face. I'm 29, my husband Ethan is 31, and we've been together 6 years, married for 2. The pregnancy was planned, celebrated, the kind of thing you post about with a cute little onesie and a caption that makes your friends cry heart react. We'd been trying for a while, and when the test finally showed 2 lines, Ethan picked me up and spun me around our tiny kitchen like we were in a movie. We called my mom first because she's my person. Then we called his parents because, well, that's what you do. His mom, Linda, screamed like we'd just told her she won the lottery. And at first I thought, maybe I finally got lucky in the mother-in-law department. Linda is the kind of woman who looks put together even in sweatpants. Perfect manicure, perfect hair, perfect smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes when she's assessing you. Ethan warns people she can be intense, which is his polite way of saying she's a professional boundary pusher who thinks any plan you make is merely a suggestion until she approves it. My family is the opposite. My mom, Denise, is warm and nosy in an endearing way. My dad, Carlos, is a quiet, steady presence who will fix your sink and then awkwardly hug you like he's apologizing for having arms. Ethan's family runs on tradition. Mine runs on vibes. We announced the pregnancy at a Sunday dinner at Linda and Frank's house. His dad mostly stayed quiet, sipping his beer like he'd rather be anywhere else. Linda had cooked enough food for a small wedding. She made Ethan's favorite roast and kept insisting I eat more, even though I was nauseous, and the smell of meat made me want to crawl out of my skin. "Little peanut needs protein," she said, sliding another spoonful of mashed potatoes onto my plate like she was feeding a child. Ethan squeezed my knee under the table, his silent signal for, "Please don't start anything." Then came micro-conflict number 1, the ultrasound. "Are you finding out the gender?" Linda asked, too casually. "We're thinking about waiting," I said. "It'll be a surprise." Linda's smile tightened. "Oh, I couldn't. I'm a planner." "It's our surprise," Ethan added, trying to sound light. Linda tilted her head. "Well, I suppose you can still plan. You can plan a theme, colors, names." Ethan and I had talked about names in the way couples do, half serious, half dreamy. We had a list on my phone. We'd agreed on 2 rules, nothing that could be easily turned into a cruel nickname, and nothing honorary unless we both genuinely loved it. That was our first mistake, believing a name belonged to us. Micro-conflict number 2 showed up as soon as Linda got me alone in the kitchen while Ethan helped Frank outside. She lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. "I'm so glad you're doing this the right way. Family first. Tradition matters." I gave her a polite smile and rinsed a plate. "Of course." Linda leaned in. "If it's a boy, you'll name him James." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. Ethan's grandfather was named James, and he'd passed away a couple of years ago. I'd met him once. He'd been kind, but we weren't close. Linda talked about him like he was a saint, and also like he still had voting rights in our marriage. "I'm sure we'll consider," I started. Linda cut me off smoothly. "It's not really a consider situation, honey. Ethan's the only son. It's expected." I froze, dish soap dripping off my hands. "It's expected by who?" I asked, still trying to keep it friendly. Linda's eyes flicked to my belly, then back to my face. "By our family. It's how it's done. Frank's father was James. Frank's middle name is James. Ethan's middle name is James." "That doesn't mean our baby has to be," I said carefully. "Ethan and I want to pick a name that feels like ours." Linda's smile widened in a way that felt like a warning. "Sweetheart, you married into this family. It is yours." When Ethan came back in, I told him what she said in that laughing so I don't scream tone. He rubbed the back of his neck. "She doesn't mean anything by it." "Yes, she does. She literally said it's expected." Ethan kissed my forehead like that would fix it. "We'll deal with it later. She's just excited." Later turned into the group chat. Micro-conflict number 3 arrived 2 days after that dinner when Linda added me to a family group message titled Baby James Chapter 2026. At first, I thought it was a typo. My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my throat. There were already 27 messages. "Linda, I found the cutest nursery theme for baby James. Aunt Carol, finally a James again. Cousin Megan, I'm crying. Grandpa would be so proud. Linda, Ethan, you're doing the right thing. Your dad is so happy. And then the one that made my hands go cold. Linda, I told the ladies at church it's James. They're praying for a healthy delivery for baby James. I stared at my phone, reading the name over and over like it would rearrange itself into something else. Ethan walked into the living room, saw my face, and said, "What's wrong?" I turned the screen toward him without a word. He went completely still. And then his phone buzzed with a new message from his mother. "We'll talk about it at dinner Sunday. Bring your list if you want, but we all know what his name is." Teaser for next part. Sunday dinner was the night I realized talk about it meant accept the decision. Sunday dinner at Linda's felt less like a family meal and more like I was walking into a deposition. Ethan drove with both hands tight on the wheel, jaw clenched, eyes fixed straight ahead, like if he looked at me, he'd have to admit we were already in trouble. I watched the neighborhood slide by and tried to breathe through the nausea that had become my full-time job. "Whatever happens," I said, "we're a team." "We are," Ethan answered too quickly. We need to keep it calm." That phrase, "keep it calm," was Ethan's way of saying, "Please don't make my mom mad." Linda greeted us at the door like she was hosting a gala. She hugged Ethan first, hard, then turned to me with a softer smile that didn't reach her eyes. "There's my mama," she said, palms on my shoulders like she owned them. "How's our little James?" I forced a laugh that came out strangled. "Still just a baby." "Oh, he's already a James," she sang, guiding us inside. "Come on, everyone's in the dining room." Everyone meant Frank, Aunt Carol, Uncle Vic, Cousin Megan, and Megan's husband, Tyler, who looked like he'd rather be at the DMV than at this dinner. Linda had assembled a jury. The table was set with linen napkins and those little place cards people use at weddings. I thought maybe she'd gone full Pinterest just because she's Linda. Then I saw mine, Mom. Not my name, not even Emily. Just Mom, like I was a role in her production. Frank's card said Grandpa Frank. Ethan's said Dad. And at the head of the table, in front of an empty high chair that was still in the packaging, was a card that read, Baby James. My stomach rolled so hard I had to grip the back of my chair. Linda noticed, of course. "Oh, I knew you'd love it. I found that high chair on sale. We'll keep it here for when you visit, since you'll be visiting all the time." I opened my mouth to say we hadn't talked about that, but Ethan pulled my chair out, the universal sign of please, not now. Dinner started normally enough, Frank asking about work, Aunt Carol talking about her neighbor's knee surgery, Megan showing me pictures of a baby blanket she was crocheting. And then Linda made the announcement like it was a toast. "So," she said, setting down her wine glass with a deliberate clink, "let's talk names." The conversation stopped like someone hit pause. Linda folded her hands. Ethan and I spoke. I looked at Ethan. He blinked like he hadn't expected his mother to say that out loud. "We did," I said. Linda's eyes flicked to me. "Sweetheart, don't start." We spoke. He knows what's right. Ethan cleared his throat. "Mom!" "After everything we've done," Linda continued, voice already climbing into that wounded, righteous tone, "after raising him, after supporting him, after welcoming you into our family, I don't think asking for one simple thing is too much." There it was, the first emotional hook. After everything we've done. I felt heat crawl up my neck. No one is saying you haven't done anything, but this is our baby. Frank shifted in his chair, eyes on his plate. Aunt Carol's lips pressed together like she was trying not to smile. Linda smiled almost kindly. "Exactly, our baby." Ethan tried to jump in. "Mom, we haven't decided." Linda cut him off with a raised finger. "James. It's James. Ethan's grandfather was a James. Frank's father was a James. Ethan is a James. This baby will be James." She turned her gaze on me like a spotlight. "It would honor your father," she said softly, and for a second I didn't understand. "My father?" I repeated. Linda nodded, eyes bright like she was doing me a favor. "Yes, Carlos. You can honor him too, middle name maybe, but the first name should be James. It's tradition. It's unity. My dad is alive, healthy, and very much not the type of person who needs a baby named after him to feel honored." Linda knew that. She wasn't talking about my father. She was talking about family and the way she defined it, her family. I swallowed. "Tradition isn't a legal contract." Linda's eyes narrowed. "No, but marriage is." There was a sharp inhale from someone. Megan, I think. My heart started pounding. What does that mean? "It means," Linda said, still smiling, "that you chose to join this family. Families don't work when everyone insists on doing things their own way." Ethan finally spoke louder. "Mom, stop! You're making it worse!" Linda's gaze snapped to him. "Oh, now I'm the problem? Of course!" And just like that, she flipped the script. She was the victim, and we were the ungrateful children. I took a slow breath and tried something that I thought was reasonable. "What if," I said carefully, "we use James as a middle name? Like, if it's a boy, we pick a first name Ethan and I love, and the middle name can be James. That way the tradition is there, but we still get to choose." For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then Linda laughed. Not a happy laugh, a little how adorable laugh. "Oh, honey," she said, "you don't compromise on legacy." Aunt Carol jumped in, voice sugary. "Middle names don't count. Nobody uses them." "And frankly," Megan added, surprising me, "Grandpa would have wanted the first name. It's the whole point." It was like watching a coordinated attack. My compromise wasn't received as a solution, it was received as an insult. Ethan's knee bounced under the table. I could feel his anxiety through the wood. Linda leaned forward. "Let's make this simple." Ethan already agreed. My head snapped toward him. "You did?" Ethan's face went pale. "I didn't. I told her we'd consider it." Linda's smile didn't move. "He said it would be James. He said it was important." "I said it was important to you," Ethan muttered, and I could hear the weakness in it, the fear of confrontation. Linda turned to me. "He promised." That word hit me like a slap. Promised. I stared at Ethan, searching his face for clarity, for backbone, for anything. And he looked at me and said, I told her we weren't totally against it. I felt something inside me go cold. Because that wasn't what we'd said in the car. That wasn't, "We're a team." That was Ethan trying to soften the blow by quietly offering pieces of me to his mother. "I'm not totally against you being happy," I said before I could stop myself, "but that doesn't mean you get to decide our baby's name." Linda's expression tightened. Frank finally looked up, eyes hard. "Watch your tone," he said, the first thing he'd said all night that carried weight. Linda put a hand on Frank's arm, the picture of calm. "It's okay, she's emotional, hormones," she turned back to me, "but we need to settle this." I already ordered the announcements. My mouth actually fell open. "You what?" Linda waved her hand like it was nothing. "Just drafts. I wanted to be ready, and don't worry, I didn't waste money. I used the church printer." Ethan blinked. "Mom, you can't." Linda's voice sharpened. "I can do whatever I want with my resources." My pulse hammered. "You made announcements for a baby that isn't yours, with a name we haven't chosen." Linda leaned back, satisfied. "That's why we're having this conversation. So we're all aligned." I couldn't eat. I couldn't breathe. I could feel the baby rolling, like even he wanted out of this room. At one point, I got up to use the bathroom just so I could stand somewhere that didn't smell like roast and entitlement. In the hallway, my phone buzzed. A notification popped up from a number I didn't recognize at first. Tyler, Megan's husband. He'd apparently gotten my contact information from the family chat. The message was one line. "Just so you know, they already printed James. There's a whole plan." My hands shook as I tapped it. Another message followed immediately. "They made a separate group chat. You're not in it. Ethan is." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. A separate group chat. A plan. And my husband was in it. Cliffhanger. I opened the family chat list on Ethan's phone that night and saw a thread titled Operation James. The thing about group chats is they're never just messages. They're a map of who's in power and who's being managed. I didn't confront Ethan that night the way I wanted to, not immediately, because once you say, "Let me see your phone," you can't unsay it. And once you find what you're afraid of, there's no going back to pretending you're paranoid. So I waited until we got home, until Ethan went to shower, until the apartment was quiet except for the hum of our fridge and the rain ticking against the window. His phone was on the kitchen counter. I hated myself a little. I also hated that I felt forced into being the kind of person who checks a spouse's phone. But this wasn't curiosity. This was damage control. I picked it up, my heart thudding so loudly I was convinced it could be heard from the bathroom. There it was. A thread titled Operation James. I tapped it. The first message I saw was Linda's. "Okay, everyone, we have to stay on message. Ethan is nervous, but he knows what's right. Don't let Emily derail him with compromises." My throat tightened. Stay on message, like I was a hostile press conference. Then Aunt Carol. If she loved him, she'd respect his family. It's selfish to erase Grandpa. Megan. I'll talk to her at the shower. Keep it light, but make it clear. Frank. No arguing at the table next time. We state facts and end it. And then the message that turned my stomach. Linda, If she pushes back, remind them about the down payment help. That usually works. My eyes blurred. Ethan hadn't told me about any down payment help. We'd been saving for a house for years, slowly, painfully. Ethan had mentioned his parents might contribute someday, but nothing concrete. And here it was, in writing, as a bargaining chip. Ethan came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, steam clinging to his hair. He froze when he saw me holding his phone. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice thin. I didn't yell. I think I was too shocked to yell. "Why are you in a group chat called Operation James?" I asked. His face drained of color. "It's not what it sounds like." "That's what everyone says," I replied, and I hated how flat my voice was. "It's literally called Operation James." Ethan took the phone from my hands gently, like I was a child holding a knife. "My mom made it. I didn't name it." "You stayed in it." He exhaled hard. "I didn't want to start a fight." I laughed once, sharp. "So instead, you let them plan a fight for you." He rubbed his face. Listen?" "No," I cut in. "You listen. Your mom is telling people to stay on message about my pregnancy, like it's a campaign. It's just Linda being Linda." "And the down payment?" I asked. "The help she thinks will usually work? What is that?" Ethan's eyes flicked away. "Oh." I felt the baby roll, a slow twist under my ribs, and it made me angry in a clean, focused way. "You knew," I said quietly. "It's not a bribe," Ethan protested. "They offered to help us with a house if we name our baby what your mom wants." I finished. "That's literally a bribe." Ethan's mouth opened and closed like he couldn't find the right lie. "I didn't want to stress you out," he said finally. I stared at him. "Congratulations, you found the least reassuring sentence possible." That was the first night we slept in the same bed and felt like strangers. And it didn't stay contained. It never does. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before I'd even finished brushing my teeth. "Aunt Carol, good morning, sweet girl. I hope you're feeling better. Just remember, some things are bigger than us." Megan, "Hey, can we talk?" "No drama, just girl talk." "Frank, Ethan is a good son. Don't punish him for being loyal." It was coordinated, a drip campaign. Each message disguised as concern, all of them carrying the same subtext. "Stop fighting. Accept it." My mom noticed immediately. "Why is your phone blowing up?" she asked when I went over later that day. Nauseous and angry, and craving the kind of calm you only get in the house you grew up in. I showed her. Her face changed as she scrolled. "Oh, absolutely not," she said, handing my phone back like it was contaminated. "They're trying to bully you. Where's Ethan in all this?" "Trying to keep it calm," I said, hearing how pathetic it sounded. My mom's eyes narrowed. "Calm for who? Not you." By the end of the week, it wasn't just texts. Linda called my OB office. I know this because the receptionist at my doctor's office, who had always been sweet and unbothered, sounded tight when she said, "Just confirming, your mother-in-law is not authorized to receive any information." I felt my stomach drop. "She called?" "She called twice," the receptionist said carefully. "She said she was helping coordinate the birth plan and needed to know what paperwork you'd be doing at the hospital." Paperwork. Forms. The thing they'd talked about in that chat. When I told Ethan, he reacted the way he always did. He got defensive on her behalf. "She's just excited," he said. "She called my doctor." I snapped. "Excited people buy baby shoes. They don't call medical offices." "She didn't get any information." "That's not the point, Ethan." He threw his hands up. "What do you want me to do? Cut her off?" I stared at him. "Do you hear yourself? You make it sound extreme to set boundaries." He looked at the floor. "You don't understand my family." "No," I said quietly. "You don't understand what it feels like to be treated like an incubator." The drama leaked outward, exactly like Linda wanted. She needed a wider audience because audiences create pressure. A week later, there was a Facebook post. Linda didn't tag me, which was almost worse because it gave her plausible deniability. It was a photo of her holding a tiny pair of blue booties with a caption, "Counting down the days until we meet you, sweet baby boy, a name with legacy, a heart full of love." The comments were worse. People from her church, old family friends, women I'd met once at Christmas. "James will be so loved." Finally, another James. "Tradition matters. You did good, Grandma Linda." Someone I didn't even know, commented, "So glad they're honoring Grandpa James. It's the only right choice." My cheeks burned as if I'd been slapped in public. Ethan's Aunt Carol became the spokesperson. It was like she volunteered for the role of reasonable mediator. Except her version of reasonable was agree with Linda. She called me while I was in a grocery store aisle staring at crackers like they were a life decision. "Emily, honey," she said, voice syrupy, "let's not make this into a power struggle." My grip tightened around my cart. "It's already a power struggle. It's just not mine." "We're not controlling you," Aunt Carol insisted. "We're protecting family legacy. That boy deserves a name that means something." "He'll have a name that means something to his parents," I said. Aunt Carol sighed dramatically. "And do you want him to have a house? A stable home? Because Frank and Linda are willing to help you two, but they need to know you respect them." There it was again, money as a leash. I swallowed. "So you're saying the help depends on the name?" "I'm saying," she replied, voice sharpening slightly, "that adults understand trade-offs." It took everything in me not to cry right there between the cereal and the pasta. When I told Ethan what Aunt Carol said, he reacted like I'd insulted his religion. She didn't mean it like that. "What other way is there?" I demanded. "They're dangling a house over our heads, so I'll let your mom name our kid." He ran a hand through his hair. "We need that help, Emily." That sentence was so honest it was horrifying. We fought in fragments for days. Nothing resolved. Everything lingered. Then came the baby shower. Linda insisted on hosting, which should have been my sign to cancel it entirely, but my mom convinced me to go. "You can't let them steal every milestone," she said. "And we'll be there." So I walked into Linda's house on a Saturday afternoon and immediately felt like I'd stepped into a theme park designed by someone who hates me. Blue balloons, blue streamers, a banner that read, "Welcome, baby boy." And on the gift table, a stack of wrapped boxes labeled, "For James." Not for the baby, not for you, for James, like the name was already printed in ink. I smiled until my face hurt and tried to survive. The humiliation was subtle at first. A friend from Linda's church I'd never met squeezed my hand and said, "You must be so proud to carry on the James name." Carry on, like I was a vehicle. Linda made sure the games reinforced the narrative. One was, guess the baby name, except the slips of paper were pre-filled. "Every single one," said James. I stood there holding a cup of punch while women laughed and clapped like it was charming. Linda clinked a spoon against her glass. "Okay, everyone," she called. "Time for a little blessing." I didn't want a blessing, I wanted to go home. But the room quieted, and suddenly everyone was looking at me. So I stood there while Linda lifted her hands like she was about to perform a ceremony. "Lord," she began, eyes closed, voice ringing, "we thank you for this baby boy, for baby James, who will carry a strong name and a strong legacy." My mom's jaw tightened beside me. I could feel it. Linda continued, "We pray for a safe delivery, and we pray for unity in this family, so that no selfishness or pride will disrupt what you have ordained." Selfishness. Pride. I felt my cheeks burn. This wasn't prayer, this was a public scolding disguised as holiness. Ethan stood near the doorway, frozen, eyes wide, like he didn't know whether to defend me or pretend he didn't hear it. When Linda finished, the room erupted in amen and applause. Then Megan walked up to me with a smile that didn't feel friendly and said quietly, "It's easier if you stop resisting. You'll just look crazy." My vision narrowed. "Excuse me?" She lifted her eyebrows, sweet as poison. "I'm just saying, everyone already knows his name, don't make it weird." Before I could respond, Linda swooped in, bright and loud. "Time for gifts," she announced. I sat in the chair she'd placed in front of everyone like I was on display. I unwrapped bows and forced gratitude while my insides curdled. Halfway through, I opened a box and felt my heart actually stop. It was a baby blanket. Soft, expensive-looking, embroidered in neat cursive. The room went quiet in that eager way crowds get when they expect a reaction. Linda beamed. "Custom," she said. "Isn't it beautiful? I told you I'd handle the details." My hands tightened on the blanket, knuckles white. Because it wasn't just a blanket. It was a stake in the ground. And everyone in that room knew it. Cliffhanger Linda leaned in, voice low enough that only I could hear, and said, "Now you can stop fighting and start being grateful." I didn't cry in front of everyone at the shower. I don't know how. I think my body went into that calm, dissociated place it reserves for car accidents and funerals. I folded the blanket neatly, set it back in the box, and smiled so hard my cheeks trembled. "It's beautiful," I said, because that's what you say when someone tries to brand your child like livestock in front of a crowd. Linda's smile widened, triumphant. She loved winning in public. Ethan caught my eye from across the room. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the wall. He didn't come over. He didn't interrupt. He didn't say, "Mom, stop." He just watched like a bystander, while I was quietly humiliated. That was the part that stayed with me afterward. Not Linda being Linda, Ethan letting it happen. On the drive home, the blanket sat in the back seat like evidence. Ethan drove with that same tight jaw, both hands on the wheel, the posture of a man trying to keep a boat steady while pretending the storm isn't real. "You okay?" he asked, too late. "No," I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady, like something snapped clean. He exhaled. "She didn't mean it to be." "She embroidered the name," I interrupted. "In cursive. That's not an accident." "She was excited. She spent money." "That's your defense?" I turned toward him. "That she spent money, so I should surrender?" Ethan's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. "I'm not saying surrender. I'm saying, can we just get through this without blowing up my family?" There it was again. Get through this. Like my pregnancy was a project plan. Like my boundaries were a temporary inconvenience. "We're already blown up," I said. "Your mother turned my shower into a campaign rally." He winced. "She shouldn't have prayed like that." "She called me selfish in a prayer, Ethan." "She didn't say your name." "Oh, okay." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "So it's fine because she publicly shamed an unnamed pregnant woman standing 3 feet away." Ethan said nothing. Silence was his favorite form of peacekeeping because it demanded nothing of him. When we got home, he carried the gifts in while I stood in the hallway trying to breathe past the tightness in my chest. Then he set the blanket box on the kitchen table like it belonged there. That was when I realized I was going to have to say something I'd been avoiding. I sat down across from him. "I need you to hear me." Ethan sank into the chair, rubbing his temples. "Okay. This is not about whether James is a nice name," I said. "This is about your family believing they get a vote, and you letting them." Ethan's eyes flicked up. "I'm not letting them. I'm just trying to—" "No," I held up my hand. "Stop. I'm not doing the spinning thing where you make it sound like I'm the unreasonable one for wanting basic respect." His face tightened. "Emily." "I'm setting a boundary," I said, voice firm. My heart was pounding, but my words felt clear, like I'd finally found the line in the sand. "No more conversations about the name with your family. No more family meetings. No more group chats. If your mom brings it up, you shut it down. Immediately. If she can't stop, we leave. I don't care if it's dinner, a holiday, or the delivery room." Ethan stared at me. "You're asking me to police my mother." "I'm asking you to protect your wife." He looked away, throat working. "You know what she's like." "Yes," I said, "I do. That's why I'm asking you to act like my partner instead of her representative." Ethan swallowed. "It's not that simple." "It actually is," I replied. "You just don't want the consequences." He flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I leaned forward. "Because right now, the consequence you're avoiding is your mom being mad at you. And the consequence I'm paying is being treated like I don't matter." Ethan's voice rose, strained. "I'm in the middle? I'm getting it from both sides?" I stared at him. "You are not in the middle. You're on the fence. And fences hurt the people closest to them." For a second, he looked genuinely pained, like he wanted to climb down and didn't know how. Then he said the sentence that still makes my stomach turn when I remember it. "If you would just let this one thing go, everything else would be fine." I went completely still. "This one thing," I repeated slowly, like I was tasting poison. "Naming our child." "It's just a name," he said quickly, immediately regretting it but not stopping. "My mom is making it a huge deal, and you're—" "And I'm what?" I asked quietly. He blew out a breath. "You're turning it into a fight." I felt something in me crack, not explode. Crack. Quiet. Final. "Ethan," I said, carefully, "your mother started this fight when she decided our baby's name was community property. I didn't create this. I'm responding to it." He rubbed his face again, voice muffled. "I just don't want to lose them." The honesty hit me harder than any insult. "Lose them," I echoed. "But you're okay losing me?" His head snapped up. "That's not what I said." "It's what you're doing," I replied. "Every time you choose peace with them over truth with me, you're making a choice." He stared at the table. "I'm scared." "Of what?" I asked. He swallowed. "Of what happens if I stand up to her. She shuts people out. She turns the family against you. She makes you the villain. You've seen it." I had. I was living it. "And you'd rather I take the hit than you," I said. His silence was the answer. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat on the couch, scrolling on his phone, and I knew he was reading messages from his mother while I lay in bed with my hands on my belly, trying not to spiral. The next day, the second marriage started breaking. It began with Tyler. Tyler, Megan's husband, was the one who'd warned me about Operation James. He hadn't been part of Linda's machine. He'd been uncomfortable, quiet, watchful. He called me during my lunch break. His voice sounded tense, like he was calling from a closet. "Hey," he said, "I'm sorry to bother you." "No, it's fine," I said. My voice was hoarse. "What's up?" There was a pause. "Megan found out I texted you." My stomach sank. "Oh." "Yeah," he said, bitter laugh. "Apparently I betrayed the family." Linda's words. I could picture Linda's face saying it, righteous and dramatic. Tyler continued, she's deep in it. Like I didn't realize how deep. She said if I don't apologize to Linda and stop siding with you, then she's going to stay with her mom. I closed my eyes. "Tyler, I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," he said quickly. "It just opened my eyes. I married Megan, and I didn't realize I married Linda too." My throat tightened. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I can't watch them bully a pregnant woman and pretend it's tradition. That's not tradition, that's control." Control disguised as tradition. There it was, said plainly by someone outside the system. As soon as we hung up, my phone buzzed again, this time from Megan. "Megan, you need to stop dragging Tyler into your drama. He's family. Don't poison him against us." I stared at it, stunned. Like I had a magic ability to control grown men with a single text. Ethan came home that evening with a look on his face like he'd been carrying rocks in his pockets all day. "Mom wants us over," he said. "No," I replied immediately. He sighed. No," I repeated. "That's the boundary." Ethan's jaw worked. "She said it's important." She said... I stood up slowly, hand braced on my lower back. "Ethan, I am not going into that house to be cornered again. If you go alone. But if you go alone, understand what message that sends." He looked torn, panicked, angry. "You're making me choose." "I didn't make this," I said, voice steady. "Your mom did. I'm just refusing to be steamrolled." Ethan stared at me, eyes glossy. "I can't just cut her off." "I didn't say cut her off," I said. "I said set boundaries. There's a difference." He swallowed. "She's offering us help." I felt my chest tighten. "Help with what?" Ethan hesitated. "The house. The down payment. And she talked about covering some of the hospital bills if insurance doesn't." I blinked. "So now it's hospital bills too." Ethan's face was strained. "We can't afford surprises right now." "And your solution is to sell our baby's name," I said. "It's not selling." "It is," I snapped, then forced myself calmer. "Ethan, look at me. If we accept money tied to this, it will never stop. First it's the name. Then it's the baptism. Then it's childcare rules. Then it's where we spend holidays. This isn't a one-time request. It's a system." He stared at me like he understood, and for a second I thought maybe he'd finally step into the role I needed him to be. Then his phone rang. Linda. He looked at the screen, then at me. His throat bobbed. "I have to take it." "No," I said simply. He blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated. "You don't. Not right now. Not unless you're ready to set the boundary." Ethan's hand hovered over the accept button like it weighed 100 pounds. His face twisted with fear. Then he answered. "Hey, Mom," he said, voice small. I watched him physically shrink as he listened. I could only hear fragments. Linda's voice was loud enough to bleed through the speaker, sharp and controlled. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, pleading. He mouthed, "Please." I didn't move. He swallowed. "Mom, she's not comfortable coming over." Linda's voice spiked. "Not comfortable? After I threw her a shower? After everything we've done?" Ethan winced. "Mom! I want you here tonight," Linda snapped. "Both of you. We are settling this." Ethan glanced at me again. "We can talk another time." "No!" Linda barked so loudly I heard it clearly. "This is the time. And Ethan, listen to me carefully." There was a pause. Ethan went very still. Then his face tightened, like he'd been slapped. He swallowed hard. "Mom, don't say that." Linda's voice stayed calm, which was worse. "I will say it. If you don't use the name James, then you can forget the down payment, forget the hospital help, and don't expect us to be involved the way grandparents should be. We will not show up to play happy family while you disrespect ours." My blood went cold. Ethan's voice cracked. "You're threatening to abandon your grandchild over a name?" "It's not abandoning," Linda said smoothly. "It's consequences. You're either part of this family or you're not." Ethan looked at me like he was drowning. And then Linda delivered the final line, sharp as a blade. If you don't use the name, then don't bother bringing that baby to my house. After that call, something shifted in my body. Not the baby, he still rolled and hiccuped like nothing in the world had changed, but me. The part of me that wanted to believe this was just awkward family pressure finally died. What Linda said wasn't a tantrum, it was policy. If you don't use the name, then don't bother bringing that baby to my house. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt clear, like the fog burned off and I could see the cliff edge in front of us. Ethan hung up with his hand shaking. She didn't mean it, he said automatically, like an incantation. Yes, she did, I replied, and even if she didn't, she said it out loud. That matters. He paced our living room, jaw tight. This is insane. It's a name. It's not a name, I said. It's a control test. He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked. His eyes were bloodshot, like he'd been crying at work or not sleeping, or both. What do you want me to do? He asked. The old me would have softened. The pregnant, exhausted, still trying to save everyone version of me would have said, let's take it slow. Instead, I said, I want you to choose us. I want you to stop giving her access to decisions that belong to us. He nodded like he agreed, but the nod looked like surrender, not commitment. And then the countdown started. At 27 weeks, the OB tells you to start thinking about the birth plan, which sounds cute until you realize it involves paperwork, hospital policies, emergency contacts, and a whole system designed to move you through a major medical event, like an airport terminal. I started making lists, not because I'm naturally organized, but because my anxiety demanded a place to go. Hospital bag checklist, emergency contacts, who's allowed in the room, who's allowed updates, who can sign anything if I'm incapacitated? That last one sat in my brain like a blinking red light. Ethan and I hadn't talked much since the call. Not real talking, more like short logistical exchanges that avoided the wound. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was folding tiny onesies in our bedroom. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? A woman's voice, professional. Hi, is this Emily, last name? This is intake from Riverside Women's Center. We received a call from someone claiming to be a family member asking about your pre-registration forms. My hands went cold. Who called? She said she was your mother-in-law, the woman replied carefully. Linda, last name. We did not give out any information, but she was very insistent and mentioned she'd handle paperwork for you. I'm calling to confirm your privacy preferences. I sat on the edge of the bed, the onesie slipping from my fingers. I don't want her to have anything. No information, no involvement. Understood, the woman said. We can place a password on your file. Anyone calling needs it. Yes, I said immediately. Please. When I hung up, my heart was racing so fast it felt like it might climb out of my chest. This wasn't paranoia. This was happening. Red flag move number 1, calling the hospital and talking about forms. I called Ethan at work. He answered on the second ring, breathless, like he'd stepped into a hallway to take it. Hey, your mom called my hospital, I said. Silence then. What? She called intake. She asked about pre-registration forms. She said she'd handle paperwork for me. Ethan's voice dropped. I didn't tell her where you're delivering. She figured it out, I said. Or you did at some point, or someone did. Ethan, this isn't normal. He swallowed. I'll talk to her. You've been talking to her for weeks. I snapped, then forced myself to breathe. I put a password on my file. She's not getting in. Okay, he said quickly. Okay, good. That's good. It wasn't good. It was necessary. That night, I made Ethan sit down with me at the kitchen table. I slid a printed sheet across to him. These are my boundaries. He blinked at it. You printed them. Yes, I said. Because your mother treats anything verbal as negotiable. The sheet was simple, almost clinical. 1, no one besides Ethan and my mother will be informed when I go into labor. 2, no one besides Ethan will be allowed in the delivery room. 3, no one besides me and Ethan will handle any registration paperwork. 4, any hospital communication requires the password. 5, if any family member violates this, visits are paused indefinitely. Ethan read it, shoulders slumping. This is harsh. This is protective, I corrected. He looked up. You really think my mom would try to, steal the form? I think your mom believes she has a right to intervene, I said. And I think she's already demonstrated she'll push until someone stops her. Ethan stared at the paper. She'll lose her mind. Then she loses her mind, I said. That's not an emergency for me to manage. He rubbed his thumb over the edge of the page. Can we soften the language? No. He flinched at the firmness. Emily, This is the first decision I'm making that I'm not negotiating, I said. I'm done bargaining for basic autonomy. He didn't argue, not because he agreed, because he was tired. And tired people make terrible promises. The next red flag came disguised as concern. Aunt Carol texted me 2 days later, just checking in. Has the hospital compiler, the registrar, explained the forms? It can be confusing. Linda can help. She's done it before. Compiler, registrar, forms. They were all suddenly obsessed with forms. I didn't reply. Linda left a voicemail that same afternoon, her tone sugary. Hi, sweetheart. I know emotions are high. I'm not the enemy. I just want everything to go smoothly. Ethan shouldn't have to stress about paperwork, so I told him I can come by the hospital and handle the registration forms for you both. It's a lot when you've just given birth. I listened to it twice, like if I listened long enough I'd find the part where she admitted the real plan. Red flag move number 2, talking about who will handle registration. I played it for Ethan. He looked like someone had punched him. She can't do that, he said, almost to himself. No, I replied. She can't, but she's planning like she can. Ethan's phone buzzed while we were talking. He glanced down, then flipped the screen away too quickly. My stomach dropped. Who is it? No one, he said. I stared at him. Ethan. He sighed and showed me the phone. Linda, I'll be in the waiting room. Make sure you tell the nurses I'm authorized. I don't want a repeat of last time, when they treated me like a stranger. Repeat of last time? I said sharply. What last time? Ethan's face tightened. When Megan had her baby, Mom got blocked. She was mad. So she's learned, I said. She's adapting. Ethan looked sick. I didn't tell her she could come. She doesn't ask permission, I said. She declares. The third red flag arrived the following week like a slow poison. Frank invited Ethan to lunch. Just Ethan. Ethan told me about it like it was nothing. Dad wants to talk. He says we need to calm things down before the baby comes. My spine went rigid. What does calm things down mean? Ethan shrugged. Just talk. I didn't like it, but I didn't stop him. Part of me still hoped Frank might be the reasonable one. Ethan came home that afternoon with a paper bag of leftovers and a haunted look. What happened? I asked. He set the bag down slowly. Dad said Mom is stressed, that we're making her sick. I let out a short laugh. Of course, she's sick from not controlling us. Ethan didn't smile. He said, this is bigger than us. My chest tightened. Did he say that exact phrase? Ethan nodded. He said, you're about to be a father. You need to act like it. Put family first. And family means your mother, I said. Ethan's eyes flicked away. He also said Mom wants to help, financially, with the hospital, with the house. And the price is the name. Ethan's silence was answer enough. Then he said, quietly, like he was confessing, Dad told me I should just handle the paperwork at the hospital. He said when you're exhausted, you won't want to deal with it, and I can just take care of it. My blood went ice cold. Red flag move number 3, pressuring Ethan to handle paperwork for me. They told you to take control of the forms, I said, voice dangerously calm. Ethan's eyes widened. No, not like that. They mean you can sign what they want while I'm drugged and bleeding, I snapped. Ethan, don't play dumb with me. His face crumpled. I wouldn't do that. I believed him. I also believed he could be manipulated into letting someone else do it, or help, or just fill it out. That was the problem. It didn't require him to be evil. It required him to be weak. That night, I tried one last de-escalation attempt, not for Linda, for Ethan, for my sanity, for the idea that maybe we could find a narrow bridge back to normal. I called Tyler. Can you meet us for coffee? I asked him. Just you, no Megan. He hesitated. Megan will lose it. I know, I said, but you're the only person in that family who seems to live in reality. We met at a quiet cafe on a Tuesday evening. Ethan looked uncomfortable the entire time, like he was afraid someone would see him talking to the wrong ally. Tyler arrived first, eyes tired. Thanks for coming, I said. He nodded. I'm just trying not to drown. Ethan cleared his throat. How bad is it at home? Tyler gave a humorless laugh. Megan moved into the guest room. Linda calls her 3 times a day. Megan says I'm breaking her mother's heart. Ethan winced. Jesus. Tyler leaned forward. This isn't about James. You know that, right? Ethan stared at his coffee. It's tradition. Tyler's eyes sharpened. No tradition is a recipe you make on holidays. This is coercion. I slid my printed boundary sheet across the table. I wrote this. I want Ethan to be able to say, "These are the rules, not up for discussion." I'm asking you, can you back him up? Can you talk to Frank? Help them understand we're not attacking them. We're protecting our birth process. Tyler read it slowly, then nodded. This is reasonable. Ethan's shoulders sagged. They'll never see it that way. Tyler looked at him. Then they're not safe people. Ethan flinched like he'd been slapped. I tried to keep my voice calm. Ethan, I'm not asking you to cut them off forever. I'm asking you to prioritize me during labor and postpartum. If your mom wants a relationship with our child, she can learn to respect boundaries. Ethan swallowed. She'll take it personally. Then she will, Tyler said bluntly. That's her choice. We left the cafe with a plan. Ethan would send a single message to Linda and Frank, clear and written, with the boundaries. No debate, no meeting. That was my de-escalation attempt. Structured communication, neutral witness, written rules. It lasted less than 12 hours. Ethan sent the text at 9:14 p.m. Mom, Dad, Emily and I have decided on privacy for labor and delivery. Only me in the room. No one else at the hospital unless we invite them. We will handle all paperwork ourselves. We will share updates when we're ready. This is not up for debate. We hope you can respect this. At 9:16, Linda replied, So she's turning you against your own parents, noted. At 9:17, if she's isolating you now, imagine what she'll do when the baby is here. At 9:18, Frank is furious. This is a slap in the face. At 9:19, if you want to play that game, you can do everything on your own. Don't ask us for anything. Not a dime, not a ride. Not a babysitter. At 9:21, Frank responded for the first time in weeks. You're making a mistake, and mistakes have consequences. Ethan stared at his phone like it might explode. This is bad. This is predictable, I said, though my hands were shaking. They're confirming what we already knew. Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another message, this time in a thread I wasn't part of. I saw his thumb hover, saw him angle the screen away again. My stomach dropped. Ethan, let me see. He hesitated too long. That was all it took. I didn't grab his phone, I didn't scream, I just held my hand out. He looked like he was about to vomit. Then, slowly, he handed it to me. It was a message from Aunt Carol in a group chat I hadn't seen before. Carol, okay, new plan. Hospital forms are the key. Ethan needs to be the one to sign. Linda can help by being there when he fills them out. Keep Emily distracted. She'll be exhausted. She won't want to read fine print. This ends the argument. I stared at the screen until the words stopped being words and became a ringing in my ears. Keep Emily distracted. Hospital forms are the key. This ends the argument. I looked up at Ethan, my voice barely there. Did you know they were saying this? He didn't answer. And that silence was the loudest sound in our apartment. Labor didn't start like the movies. There was no dramatic water breaking in a grocery store aisle, no frantic drive with screaming and sirens. It started at 2:11 a.m. with a dull cramp that woke me up and made me stare at the ceiling, bargaining with my own body. Not tonight, please not tonight. I'm not ready. By 2:40, the cramps had a rhythm. By 3:15, I was standing in the bathroom with my hands braced on the counter, breathing through pain that came in waves and left me shaking after. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his eyes, asking the same question every few minutes like it was a spell. Is it time? I checked my contraction app with trembling fingers. If this keeps up, yes. I didn't call Linda. I didn't call Aunt Carol. I didn't call anyone besides my mother. Because that had been the plan. The boundary in ink. Ethan watched me press call, and I saw the split second of hesitation in his face. That flicker of, should I tell my mom too? I met his eyes. Don't. He swallowed. I wasn't. Ethan, I said, and my voice was so flat it scared even me. Don't. He nodded, quickly, almost childlike. Okay. We moved through the next hour like we were underwater. Ethan packed the last-minute items into the hospital bag with clumsy hands. I changed clothes, paced, stopped, breathed, tried not to panic. My mother arrived with her hair in a messy bun and her shoes on the wrong feet, and she didn't say anything dramatic. She just hugged me and said, I'm here. At 5:06 a.m., we got in the car. I remember the streetlights blurring because my eyes were watering. I remember the smell of Ethan's coffee breath when he leaned over to ask if I needed anything. I remember my mother's hand on my shoulder from the back seat. And I remember thinking, with a cold certainty, if they try something today, I will burn this whole bridge down. At the hospital entrance, Ethan dropped us off and went to park. My mother and I shuffled inside, me stopping every few steps when a contraction hit, her murmuring, "Breathe, breathe," like she was guiding me through a storm. At intake, the nurse asked, "Name and date of birth?" I gave it, then added immediately, "My file has a password. No information to anyone without it." The nurse nodded like she'd heard this before. "Got it. What's the password?" I told her. She typed, then looked up. "You're marked private. No visitors unless you approve. One support person in the room." My mother squeezed my hand. I could have cried with relief. Then Ethan arrived, slightly out of breath. He kissed my forehead. "We're good," he said, like he was trying to convince himself. They moved us to triage. Bright lights. Cold sheets. A monitor strapped around my belly. Nurses speaking in calm, clipped sentences. My mother and Ethan standing on either side of me like bookends. For a brief stretch of time, it actually felt safe. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, quickly, like a reflex. I saw his face change, the tightness around his mouth, the subtle widening of his eyes. "Who is it?" I asked. "No one," he said too fast. My mother's head snapped up. "Ethan?" He held up the phone, screen turned away from us. "It's just work." At that exact moment, another contraction slammed into me and stole the air from my lungs. I gripped the side rail and tried not to scream. The pain made everything narrow down to one thing: survive this wave. When it passed, I was shaking. Sweat dampened my hair at my temples. I looked at Ethan again. "Give me the phone." His face went blank. "What?" "Give me the phone," I repeated. "Now." He hesitated. My mother's voice dropped. "Ethan, don't do this." Ethan swallowed and handed it over. 3 missed calls. Linda. 2 texts. "Where are you?" "Don't lie to me. I know you're at Riverside." My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. "How does she know?" I whispered. Ethan's face went ashen. I don't know." I stared at him. "Are you sharing your location with her?" He blinked. She asked me to when Dad was sick last year. I never turned it off." My mother let out a low sound that wasn't quite a gasp and wasn't quite a curse. I felt like the room tilted. "Turn it off," I said. "Right now." Ethan fumbled with his settings like his hands didn't work. Okay. Another buzz. A new text came through as he was turning it off. "I'm on my way. Don't you dare shut me out." I handed the phone back to him like it was radioactive. "Ethan," I said, voice shaking with more than pain, "if she shows up here—" "She won't get in," he said quickly. "You're private. You have the password. We're fine." I wanted to believe him. I also remembered hospital forms are the key. Labor blurred time. Minutes felt like hours. Nurses came and went. My mother wiped my forehead. Ethan kept asking what I needed, then flinching at every sound his phone made as if it might detonate. At some point, a nurse asked if I wanted pain relief options, and I nodded so fast I almost cried. The decision wasn't philosophical. It was survival. When the medication finally took the edge off, the world softened around the corners. I could still feel pressure, still feel the intensity, but I wasn't drowning in it. That's when the first hope arrived. Not from my mother. From outside. A knock at the door. A nurse opened it slightly, then looked back at me. "There's a woman at the desk," she said carefully. "She says she's your mother-in-law. She's insisting she needs to come back." My stomach flipped despite the meds. "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not." The nurse nodded. "We have you marked private. She doesn't have the password. She's making a scene." Of course she was. "I don't want her here," I said. My voice shook. "Tell security if you have to." The nurse gave me a steady look. "We can handle it." Ethan's face was tight, like he was in physical pain. "I'll go talk to her," he blurted. "No," I snapped. He flinched. "No," I repeated, softer but firmer. "If you go out there, you're giving her what she wants, a negotiation, a chance, a crack in the door." "I can calm her down," Ethan said, desperate. My mother leaned in, voice low. "Ethan, if you leave her right now, she'll feel abandoned. She needs you here." I looked at him. "Stay." He stood there, torn, jaw working like he was chewing panic. Then he nodded, stiffly, and sat back down by my bed. The nurse left and closed the door. For 10 minutes, it was quiet again. Then we heard it. Not words, exactly. Muffled voices through the hallway, sharp and rising. A woman's voice carrying in that unmistakable way some people have when they're performing outrage for an audience. I am the grandmother. I have rights. My mother's eyes narrowed. Oh my God! Ethan covered his face with his hands. A male voice. Security, maybe, responded calmly. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice. Then Linda again, louder. They're in there. He's my son. He needs me. She's controlling him. The words, she's controlling him, sliced through me like ice. I was half drugged and exhausted, and still I felt rage burn cleanly through my chest. She's telling them I'm controlling you, I said, voice thick. Ethan's hands fell away from his face. His eyes were glossy. She's upset. She's building a story, I said, right now, in the hallway, while I'm in labor. My mother leaned over and pressed the call button for the nurse. When the nurse came back, my mother said, we need it documented that she's here and she's causing a disturbance, and we need confirmation she can't access paperwork. The nurse blinked, then nodded slowly. We'll note it. Ethan looked like he might pass out. Paperwork? I turned my head toward him. Yes, paperwork. A different nurse arrived a little later, older, with the calm authority of someone who'd seen every kind of family disaster. I'm Nurse Patel, she said, looking at me kindly. I'm told there's a situation with visitors. Yes, I said, my mother-in-law is not allowed. No information, no access. Nurse Patel nodded. Understood. You're private, and your file is password protected. She won't be allowed back without your explicit consent. Ethan exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Nurse Patel looked at Ethan then, measured. Sir, just so you're aware, the patient is our priority. If anyone tries to interfere with her care or her decisions, we will remove them. Ethan swallowed. I understand. The words sounded right. The fear in his eyes didn't. Hours later, time lost its meaning. I finally delivered our baby boy. No graphic details. Just the overwhelming animal relief of it being over and him being here, the tiny weight on my chest, the sound of his cry, sharp and alive. My body shook. My mind floated. I cried without fully knowing why. Ethan cried too, quietly, pressing his forehead against mine. We did it, he whispered. For a moment, I let myself believe that the worst was behind us, that the baby's arrival would snap Ethan out of his fear, that Linda's control would shrink in the face of something real. Then the hospital registrar arrived. She was a petite woman with a clipboard and an efficient smile. Hi, she said softly, I'm here with the birth certificate worksheet. No rush, but we like to get this started when parents are ready. I felt like my heart stopped and restarted. The form. Nurse Patel was still in the room, adjusting something quietly. My mother stood by the window holding my water cup like it was a weapon. The registrar smiled at Ethan. Dad, you can fill out the top section while Mom rests if you'd like. Ethan's hand lifted automatically, like he'd been waiting for permission. My mouth went dry. No, I said. The registrar blinked. Oh, of course, Mom can fill it out. I'm filling it out, I said, and my voice surprised me. It was steady, and I want the nurse to witness it. Ethan's face tightened. Emily, you're exhausted. I turned my head slowly toward him. Do not start. The registrar's eyes flicked between us, polite but alert. She'd seen the dynamic shift. Nurse Patel stepped closer. Mom has the right to complete it. We can help her. Ethan swallowed hard. I'm not trying to. You're not trying to, I echoed, bitter. Your family is, and you keep ending up as the tool. Ethan's eyes flashed with hurt. That's not fair. My mother's voice cut in, sharp as a blade. It's exactly fair. Ethan looked at the baby, then back at me. He looked torn in that familiar way, like he wanted everyone happy even when happiness required me to disappear. The registrar cleared her throat gently. I can come back later. No, I said quickly. Now is fine. I want this done while the boundaries are clear. My hands shook as I reached for the clipboard. The pen felt too heavy. My wrist ached. My body felt like it belonged to someone else. I filled out the basics slowly. My name, Ethan's name, address, dates. The room was too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, shaky and uneven. Then I reached the line. Child's name, A's, blank. My throat tightened. I glanced at Ethan. He stared at the line like it was a trap door. What are we doing? He whispered. I felt the air change. This was it, the split second where we either became a unit or we became a cautionary tale. We're choosing, I said, each word careful. You and me, not your mother, not your aunt, not a group chat. Ethan's jaw worked. His eyes were wet. My mom is going to... I don't care, I said, and my voice broke on the last word. Ethan, I don't care what she does. I care what you do. Nurse Patel stood like a guard at my shoulder. My mother didn't move, but her presence filled the room. Ethan leaned closer, voice low, so the registrar couldn't hear. If we don't use James, they'll cut us off. They'll never forgive us. I looked at him, and I realized something with awful clarity. Ethan wasn't arguing about a name. He was bargaining for his mother's approval on the day our son was born. I whispered back, if you need her approval more than you need my trust, then we have a bigger problem than a name. His face crumpled. The door opened suddenly. A nurse stuck her head in, eyes apologetic. I'm sorry, security had to escort someone out. She was insisting she needed to sign for the parents. She said her son would authorize her. My blood went ice cold, insisting she needed to sign. My mother's hand tightened on the water cup. Nurse Patel's expression hardened. No one signs anything but the parents, she said flatly to the nurse. Then to me, you're safe. Ethan looked like he was going to vomit. I stared at the form again, my hand hovered over the name line. In my head, I heard Linda's voice. This ends the argument. I wrote the first letter of the name Ethan, and I had loved for months, quietly, privately, before the war started. Ethan inhaled sharply. Emily. Then his hand shot out and covered mine, not gentle. My pen stopped mid-stroke. His voice was barely above a whisper, shaking. Wait, please. The registrar looked up, confused, sensing tension. Nurse Patel stepped closer. Ethan's eyes locked onto mine. They were terrified. He glanced toward the door, as if he could still hear his mother's outrage echoing down the hall. And then, with his hand still on mine, he said, Just write, James, and we'll figure it out later. My entire body went still. The pen trembled between my fingers. Nurse Patel's voice came low and firm. Sir, remove your hand. Ethan didn't move. And in that frozen moment, my newborn breathing softly beside me, my mother staring like she might lunge, a legal document under my shaking hand, I realized something that made my chest go hollow. Even if the form never got signed, the damage already was. Because the person I needed most was still trying to hand my son to his mother. Cliffhanger. Nurse Patel reached for the clipboard, and Ethan tightened his grip on my hand as the pen hovered, one stroke away from making James permanent. I didn't learn about Megan and Tyler's marriage collapsing from a dramatic announcement. I learned because my phone wouldn't stop vibrating in the quietest room I'd ever been in. The postpartum unit at 3 a.m., with my newborn finally asleep on my chest, and my body feeling like it had been hit by a truck. The name paperwork situation had ended the only way it could have, with hospital staff stepping in. Nurse Patel made Ethan remove his hand. She didn't ask. She didn't negotiate. She used the same tone you use on someone reaching for a hot stove. Sir, now. Ethan let go like he'd been burned. I filled out the form with my hand shaking and my heart hammering, and I wrote the name Ethan and I had chosen months ago, before Linda turned our baby into a referendum. Ethan didn't speak while I did it. He just stared at the wall like he was watching something die in slow motion. The registrar took the clipboard, thanked us, and left. Nurse Patel stayed a second longer, looked at me, and said quietly, You did the right thing. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. Because outside that room, my husband was already grieving the wrath of his mother more than he was celebrating the birth of his son. Linda did not get into the unit. Security kept her out. But that didn't stop her from escalating in the only way she knew how, by making it bigger than the moment. By lunchtime the next day, Ethan's phone was blowing up again. He tried to hide it until I caught the name on the screen. Megan. Ethan stepped into the hallway to answer. I watched him through the cracked door, shoulders hunched, voice low, nodding like he was being scolded. When he came back in, he looked pale. Megan and Tyler are here, he said. My stomach tightened. Here, where? Downstairs, he said, in the lobby. Megan says she needs to talk. She says it's urgent. My mother, who had been dozing in the chair by the window, opened her eyes immediately. No, she said without hesitation. I stared at Ethan. We're not doing a family summit in a hospital. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. Megan said she's not here for drama. She said Tyler. Tyler, I repeated. Ethan swallowed. Tyler told her what happened, about Mom trying to push the paperwork, and Megan is furious at him. Of course she was. In Linda's world, the crime was never the control. It was exposing the control. I shifted carefully in the bed, my body protesting, my baby stirring. If Megan is furious at Tyler for trying to protect me, then I don't need to hear anything she has to say. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. She says Tyler betrayed the family by taking your side. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my voice level. He didn't take my side. He took the side of basic reality. Ethan's eyes darted to the door. She wants me to come down. My mother sat up straighter. Absolutely not. Ethan looked between us like he was trapped. It's my cousin? And I just gave birth? I said, flat. If you leave this room to manage their feelings, you're proving the exact point I've been making. His face tightened. I'm not managing. Ethan, I said, voice low, I need you here with me, with your son. This is not optional. He hesitated for 2 long seconds. Then he nodded. Okay. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt dread. Because Ethan, agreeing in the moment, didn't stop the machine outside from running. An hour later, the machine arrived anyway. There was a commotion in the hallway. Raised voices, quick footsteps, a nurse's calm tone. Then a sharper voice cutting through it like a blade. Megan, this is ridiculous, I'm family. A man's voice, Tyler's, low and tense. Megan, stop. You're making it worse. I'm making it worse? Megan snapped. You went behind my back. You texted her. You undermined my mother. A nurse appeared in our doorway, face polite but firm. Hi, I'm sorry. There are some visitors asking for you, but you're marked private. Do you want anyone admitted? No, I said immediately. Behind the nurse, I could see them, Megan in a fitted sweater, hair perfect, eyes bright with anger. Tyler beside her, shoulders slumped, looking like he hadn't slept in days. And behind them, like a shadow that didn't belong in daylight, was Linda. Security was with them, arms crossed, waiting. My stomach dropped. She's here, I whispered. Ethan's face turned to stone. How did she? Linda's voice floated forward, sweet as poison. Ethan, honey, don't do this. The nurse looked at me again. Ma'am? No one, I repeated. No visitors. Megan surged forward like she could physically push past policy. Emily, this is insane. You can't shut out family. This is a baby, not a hostage. Tyler caught her arm. Stop. Megan jerked away. Don't touch me. Linda stepped closer, hands lifted, acting like the calm adult. Sweetheart, nobody is trying to hurt you. You're emotional. It's been a hard delivery. Let's not make permanent decisions in a temporary mood. I felt my vision narrow. I'd never hated the word emotional more than I did in that moment. My mother stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. Back up, she said, voice sharp. You are not allowed in here. Linda's eyes flicked to my mother with contempt, disguised as pity. Denise, please, this is between Ethan and his family. My daughter is lying in a hospital bed, my mother shot back. So yes, it's between me and anyone stressing her. The nurse lifted a hand. Ma'am, you need to step away from the doorway. Linda smiled at the nurse like she was charmed by authority. Of course. I just need to speak to my son for 1 minute. Ethan stood by the bed, shoulders rigid. Mom, you can't be here. Linda's smile didn't move. I'm here because you're making a mistake. Megan cut in, voice rising again, eyes locked on Tyler. We had a plan. We all agreed we were going to do this the right way. And you sabotaged it because you wanted to play hero. Tyler's jaw clenched. I didn't sabotage anything. Your mom tried to interfere with legal paperwork while Emily was in labor. Megan laughed, sharp and ugly. Legal paperwork. Listen to you. You sound like her. You've been poisoned? Tyler flinched. No, I've been paying attention. Megan took a step closer to him, voice low but venomous. Then pay attention to this. You are either with me and my family, or you are against us. There it was, the loyalty test, spoken out loud. Tyler stared at her for a long second, like he was seeing her for the first time. Do you hear yourself? Megan's eyes flashed. Do you? Linda stepped in, voice soothing. Megan, honey, not now. We're here to support Ethan. Megan didn't look away from Tyler. No, we're here because Emily thinks she can disrespect my mother and face no consequences. My baby stirred on my chest. I instinctively tightened my arms around him. Tyler's voice cracked, just slightly. This isn't about consequences. It's about control. Your mom treats people like chess pieces. And you let her. Megan's face went red. Don't you dare talk about her like that. Tyler swallowed hard. Why? Because it's true? Megan's eyes flicked to Ethan, then to me, then back to Tyler like she was gathering witnesses. You're embarrassing me. Tyler let out a shaky laugh. I'm embarrassing you. Megan, your mother is in a hospital hallway trying to override a new mom's boundaries. And you're yelling at me for calling it out. Megan's voice went high. Because you're choosing her over me. Tyler's face fell. No, I'm choosing decency. The hallway went quiet for a beat, the kind of quiet that happens when everyone recognizes a relationship just crossed a line it can't uncross. Linda's expression hardened. Tyler, she said, voice suddenly cold, you're out of line. Tyler looked at her, jaw tight. No. I'm done being polite while you bully people. Megan's breath hitched. If you're going to talk about my mom like that, then you can sleep somewhere else. Tyler blinked. Are you serious? Megan lifted her chin. Yes, go, since you love betraying family so much. Tyler's eyes flicked toward me. Apology, exhaustion, helplessness. Then he looked back at Megan with a grim, final calm. Okay, he said quietly. I will. Megan's face changed, shock for half a second, then snapped back into anger. Good. Tyler turned and walked away down the hall, shoulders stiff, not looking back. Megan stood there, breathing hard, like she'd won something. And that's when I realized the baby name war hadn't just cracked my marriage, it was exposing everyone else's, like a stress test that revealed the weak beams. The nurse stepped forward again, clearly done. Ma'am, you need to leave the unit, now. Linda's eyes narrowed. You can't keep a grandmother from her grandchild. Yes, the nurse said evenly, we can. Linda's gaze snapped to Ethan. Are you going to let them treat me like this? Ethan looked like he was going to fold in half. Mom, please! Linda's voice sharpened. This is what she wanted. She wanted to isolate you. She wanted to take you away from us. My mother stepped closer to the doorway like a wall. He's a grown man. If he's isolated, it's because your presence is toxic. Linda's mouth tightened. Then she smiled, and it was the most chilling expression I'd seen on her face yet. Fine, she said softly. If you want to play it that way, we'll do it the right way. Ethan blinked. What does that mean? Linda's eyes stayed on me. It means, she said, slow and deliberate, we're taking this to court. The first week postpartum is supposed to be a blur of diapers, cluster feeding, and the kind of exhaustion that makes you cry because the toast is burnt. Mine was that too, just with an added soundtrack of my husband's phone vibrating like a live grenade and my mother-in-law threatening litigation over a name she didn't get to choose. Linda's "we're taking this to court" didn't come with details. No for what, no how, just that calm, weaponized certainty she used whenever she wanted people to panic. And it worked. Ethan went quiet in the days after we came home, the way he always did when his mother got extreme. He didn't argue with me. He didn't reassure me either. He just moved around the apartment like he was waiting for something bad to happen, like he knew it would. I was the one up at 2 a.m., feeding our son with one hand and Googling with the other. Can grandparents sue for baby name change? Can grandparents sue for visitation? Every answer was some version of, it depends, which somehow made it worse. It depends is how people lose sleep. The next escalation came through my phone, not the mail. A mutual family friend, someone I'd met exactly twice, texted me, Hey, are you okay? I heard you had some kind of breakdown at the hospital and they had to remove Linda. People are worried. Breakdown. Removed. People are worried. I stared at the words until my vision blurred. I hadn't had a breakdown. I'd had labor. Linda had been removed because she tried to force her way into a private postpartum unit and, quote, sign for the parents. But that wasn't the version being told now. That was the moment I understood Linda's strategy. If she couldn't win on the name, she'd win on the narrative. I opened Facebook, something I hadn't done since delivery, and there it was, vague posting with surgical precision. Linda had shared a prayer request from her church group. No names, no tags, just enough for her audience to fill in the blanks. Please pray for our family. A new baby has arrived, but there's a lot of tension and boundaries being used as weapons. I'm heartbroken and concerned for my son. The comments were exactly what you'd expect. Some women isolate men from their families. Postpartum can make mothers irrational. Don't let her control you, Ethan. Grandparents have rights, you know. I felt physically sick. My mother sat beside me on the couch, watching me scroll with my newborn asleep against my chest. She didn't say, I told you so. She just said, okay, now we document. I didn't feel like some heroic strategist. I felt like a tired woman with stitches and leaking milk, realizing she had to build a case file just to protect her child from being treated like a trophy. So I did what you do when you're scared and you finally accept you're not dealing with normal people. I started collecting evidence. Not in an internet drama way, in a this might be read by a judge way. I made a folder on my laptop timeline. I created a note with dates and short facts. Linda added me to Baby James Chapter 2026 group chat date. Found Operation James group chat on Ethan's phone date. Hospital intake called. Linda requested pre-registration forms date/time. Voicemail. Linda offering to handle registration forms date. Text. Carol. Hospital forms are the key. Keep Emily distracted date. Linda attempted entry to unit. Security escorted her out date/time. Linda stated, "We're taking this to court." Date/time. Witnesses, nurse, mom, Ethan. Then I did the receipts. Receipt 1. I screenshotted the Operation James messages I'd seen, especially the line about staying on message and the down payment being leverage. I didn't forward them to anyone. I emailed them to myself and my mom so they had timestamps and a backup. Receipt 2. I saved Linda's voicemail where she said she'd come to the hospital and handle the registration forms. I exported it and wrote down the exact date and time. Receipt 3. I took a screenshot of Aunt Carol's new plan message. Hospital forms are the key. Keep Emily distracted. Ethan needs to sign. Linda can help. I didn't need 1,000 messages. I needed the ones that showed intent. Ethan saw me doing it and flinched. "You're building a case against my family," he said quietly. "I'm building a case against behavior," I replied. "If your family looks bad in it, that's on them." He sat down heavily at the kitchen table, head in his hands. "This is going to ruin everything." I stared at him. "Ethan, everything is already ruined. We're just deciding whether it ruins us too." The next step was a lawyer. Not because I wanted to win, because I needed to know what I was even defending against. I found a family law attorney recommended by a coworker of my mom's and booked a consult. Ethan didn't come. He said he had work. I didn't push. I couldn't afford to drag him into adulthood. The attorney was calm and unromantic, exactly what I needed. She asked for facts, dates, documents. She didn't react emotionally to Linda's theatrics. She translated it into risk. "Here are the most likely moves," she said, and I remember gripping my notebook so hard my fingers ached. 1. They pressure your husband to file to change the name. 2. They pursue grandparent visitation if you cut contact. 3. They try for a court order under the umbrella of best interest arguments, usually by claiming you're alienating family or unstable. "Can they do that?" I asked. "It depends on your state and on your husband's cooperation," she said. Then she looked at me over her glasses. "The most dangerous variable here is not your mother-in-law. It's whether your husband holds the line." That sentence sat in my chest like a stone. I went home and found Ethan in the nursery, staring at the crib we'd barely used. "I met with a lawyer," I told him. He turned slowly. "Already?" "Yes," I said, "because your mother said court, and because I'm not going to be unprepared while I'm sleep-deprived and healing." Ethan's eyes darted away. "What did they say?" I watched him carefully. "They said the most dangerous variable is whether you hold the line." His face tightened, and for a second I thought he might finally get angry at his mother. Instead, he whispered, "I don't want to lose everyone." I stepped closer. "Ethan, listen to me. You don't get to keep everyone. Not when everyone means a group of people who tried to override my consent in a hospital." He didn't answer. That night, my phone buzzed again, this time from Tyler. "They served Megan today. She's furious. Linda says you're next." My stomach dropped. Served wasn't a metaphor. It was a process server. Paperwork. I typed back with shaking hands. "Served for what?" Tyler replied, "I don't know. Megan won't tell me. She just keeps saying, Mom is doing what she has to do." I barely slept. Every knock outside made my heart stutter. 2 days later, it happened. A man knocked on our apartment door mid-afternoon. I was in sweatpants, hair unwashed, the baby tucked against my chest in a sling. Ethan was at work. I opened the door a crack. "Emily, last name?" he asked. "Yes." He held out an envelope. "You've been served." My hands went numb as I took it. I shut the door, leaned my forehead against it, and stared at the front page through the plastic window. Petition. A courthouse name. And a date stamped in bold at the bottom. Hearing scheduled. Date. I didn't even know what they were asking for yet. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't a family disagreement anymore. This was a legal war over my child, and the next person who had to choose a side was my husband. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after I gave birth. 3 weeks of bleeding, sleep deprivation, and trying to bond with my baby, while a legal document sat on my kitchen counter like a bomb. The petition itself was written in that sterile court language that makes cruelty sound polite. Linda wasn't technically asking the court to rename my baby in those words. She framed it as a request for correction and clarification of paternal intent, leaning heavily on one idea: that Ethan had always intended the baby to be James, and that I had unilaterally acted while he was under emotional distress, which was a creative way of saying, I didn't get my way, so I'm calling it fraud. There were also a few lines that chilled me more than the name issue: references to family access, concern about maternal gatekeeping, and a veiled suggestion that my boundaries were excessive and harmful to the child's extended family bonds. Name, visitation, leverage. We still didn't know exactly which lever Linda intended to pull first, but the message was clear. She wanted the court to validate her authority. Ethan agreed to attend with me after a 2-day silence that felt like punishment. I'm coming, he said finally, voice tight. I don't want to be in the middle. I looked at him, my baby asleep in his carrier, and felt something steady settle in my chest. You're not in the middle, I said. You're on the record. The courthouse didn't look like the movies either. No dramatic, wood-paneled courtroom with a booming judge. It was fluorescent lighting, beige walls, tired people holding folders, and a clerk calling names like we were waiting for a dentist. When our case number was called, my mouth went dry. Linda was already there, perfectly dressed. Frank sat beside her like an accessory. Aunt Carol was behind them with a notebook like she was taking minutes. Megan was there too, eyes puffy, jaw clenched. Tyler sat a few seats away from her, alone, staring at the floor. Seeing them in the same building made my stomach twist. The baby named War had turned the entire family into opposing counsel. Linda saw me and smiled, bright and practiced. Emily, she said, like we were at brunch. I didn't answer. Ethan's shoulders tightened. He glanced at his mother, then at me, like he was about to start translating again. Peacekeeping, smoothing, minimizing. My attorney, Miss Klein, leaned in and murmured, Stay quiet. Let them talk first. We were directed into a small mediation room rather than a full courtroom. Just a table, a mediator, and a feeling like you'd stepped into an office where people's lives got rearranged. The mediator introduced herself, explained confidentiality, explained process, and then asked each side to state their concerns briefly. Linda went first. She clasped her hands and sighed like she was carrying unbearable sorrow. This is about family, she said. We welcomed Emily. We supported them. We threw the baby shower. We offered help. But Emily has been shutting us out. The name James is a tradition. It's a legacy. Ethan has always wanted it. And now he's being pushed away from his own family at a time when he needs support. The subtext was as loud as her voice. I am the victim. She is the aggressor. Ms. Klein kept her expression neutral. Any documentation that Ethan always wanted the name? Linda's smile didn't falter. We have texts. We have witnesses. Frank cleared his throat. It's not right for a mother to override the father. I felt Ethan flinch at that, like the word override implied he'd been weak. Then it was my turn. I spoke slowly, because if I spoke too fast, I'd cry. This is not about tradition, I said. It's about control. Linda tried to decide our baby's name before he was born. She added me to group chats, calling him James. She ordered announcements. She called my hospital. She tried to get access to registration forms. She showed up during labor and had to be escorted out. Linda's eyebrows lifted, wounded. That is an exaggeration. The mediator looked at Linda. Did you contact the hospital? Linda hesitated for half a second. Barely visible, but it was there. I called to ask about procedures, she said. I was trying to help. First-time parents can be overwhelmed. Ms. Klein's voice was calm. Did you tell anyone you would handle registration forms? Linda's smile tightened. That's not what I meant. I reached into my folder and slid my phone across the table with the audio file cued. I saved the voicemail, I said quietly. You can listen. Linda's face sharpened. That's invasive. No, Miss Klein said evenly. It's evidence. The mediator listened, her face changing slightly as Linda's own voice filled the room, offering to come to the hospital and handle the registration forms as if that were normal. Linda tried to recover immediately. I was offering help, she insisted. This is what families do. We show up. We support. Miss Klein nodded slowly. So you were offering help, not demanding authority. Of course, Linda said quickly. I just wanted things done correctly. Ms. Klein turned one page in her folder. Then why did you tell Ethan, quote, make sure you tell the nurses I'm authorized? Linda blinked. Frank's head jerked toward her. Aunt Carol's pen paused. Linda's lips parted slightly, then she smiled again, brighter, as if she could charm the air itself. I don't recall saying that. Miss Klein didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. We have a screenshot, she said, and another message from Carol about hospital forms being the key and keeping Emily distracted. I watched Linda's composure tighten like fabric stretched too far. The mediator's eyes narrowed. Mrs. Last name, can you explain what keep Emily distracted means? Linda's gaze flicked toward Ethan. Fast, sharp. And that was the exposure moment. Because Linda didn't look at me. She didn't look at the mediator. She looked at her son like he was a tool she needed to pick up again. Ethan swallowed hard, visibly sweating. Linda recovered with a laugh that sounded wrong in the quiet room. It's just family talk. People say things. It was never serious. Miss Klein leaned forward slightly. If it wasn't serious, why are we here? Linda's smile cracked for the first time. Because, she said, voice suddenly colder, Emily is making us look like monsters. She's telling people we were escorted out like criminals. She's painting me as some kind of villain, and that's not who I am. There it was. Not legacy, not tradition. Reputation. The mediator held Linda's gaze. So the harm you're claiming is reputational? Linda stiffened. I'm claiming we are being excluded from our grandchild. And the name? The mediator asked. Linda's jaw tightened. The name is the principal. Ms. Klein's tone stayed even. Principal or ownership? Linda's eyes flashed. I am his grandmother. And she said it like it meant rank, like it meant she outranked me. The room went very still. The mediator looked at Ethan. Mr. Last Name, you're the father. I need to hear from you directly. Did you want the name James? Do you want it now? And did you consent to anyone besides you and your wife handling the paperwork? Ethan's face went pale. He looked at Linda. Then he looked at me. I felt my pulse in my throat. Because I suddenly understood. This wasn't just a hearing about a name. This was the moment Ethan had to choose publicly, on the record, whether he was a husband and father or a son being managed. The mediator's pen hovered over the page. Mr. Last Name? She prompted. And Ethan opened his mouth to answer. Ethan's mouth opened, and for a second I thought he might do what he'd always done. Look at his mother, panic, and try to land on a compromise that kept everyone angry but technically connected. Instead, he swallowed hard and said, quote, I did not authorize anyone to handle paperwork for us. My wife filled out the form. That was her right. Linda's face tightened like a cord being pulled. The mediator didn't react emotionally. She just wrote it down. And the name? She asked. Ethan's hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. I liked James. I thought about it, but I didn't decide it. We didn't agree. My mother decided, and I let it get too far. That's on me. I felt the air leave my lungs, not in relief exactly, more like shock. Hearing him admit it out loud, on the record, felt like watching someone finally step out of a shadow. Linda leaned forward, voice sharp. Ethan, don't do this. The mediator held up a hand. Mrs. Last Name, you've spoken. Linda's eyes flashed. Frank's jaw worked. Aunt Carol's pen scratched furiously, like she could rewrite reality if she documented it. Miss Klein didn't gloat. She simply slid the screenshots forward. For completeness, we have communications about keeping the mother distracted and using forms to end argument. The mediator read, then set the pages down gently. Her tone stayed measured. I'm not seeing legal grounds to compel a name change, she said. A child's name is the parent's decision. Additionally, based on these messages and the hospital incident, I'm concerned about boundary violations. Linda's smile reappeared, brittle. So she can keep our grandchild from us. The mediator looked at her. That's not what I said, but I am saying that access is earned through respectful behavior. Threatening litigation as a pressure tactic tends to backfire. Frank finally spoke, voice low. So what happens now? The mediator outlined the terms with the same calm voice someone might use to explain a parking ticket. The petition to correct the name would be withdrawn. No further action on the name. There would be no court-ordered grandparent rights determined at this time. If the parents chose to allow contact, it would be voluntary. If contact occurred, it would be conditioned on clear boundaries. No disparagement, no harassment, no attempts to override parental decisions, and no showing up uninvited at medical visits or the home. Linda's face went still. The word conditioned offended her more than anything else. When the mediator asked if we accepted, I said yes, without hesitation. Ethan's voice was quieter but steady. Yes. Linda didn't say yes, she said, "I'll do what I have to do," like she was the hero of a tragedy. But her attorney, who had been mostly silent, leaned in and murmured something, and Linda finally nodded with a tight smile. The decision was imminent, and then it was done. Paperwork signed, petition withdrawn, a record created. Outside the building, the winter air felt sharp and clean, like my lungs didn't know how to breathe it. Tyler was standing near the steps, hands in his pockets. He looked exhausted, like the last month had aged him 5 years. Megan was a few yards away with Linda and Frank, her posture rigid, face turned slightly away from Tyler like he was a stranger. Tyler walked over to me first. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, but my throat tightened. "Are you?" He let out a breath that sounded like a laugh without humor. "No, but I'm clearer." Ethan hovered near me, uncertain. I could feel him wanting to retreat into old habits, to make small talk, to smooth edges. He didn't. He stayed. Tyler glanced at Ethan, then back to me. "Megan and I are separating," he said simply. "I'm staying with a friend for now." I didn't know what to say. There's no congratulatory response to someone losing their marriage, even if it was built on enabling. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Tyler shook his head. "Don't be. This didn't break us. It exposed us." His eyes flicked toward Megan and Linda. I married into a loyalty system. The baby name thing just made it impossible to ignore. Megan looked over then, and for a moment her eyes met mine. There was anger there, yes, but also something else. Embarrassment, maybe. The realization that the script didn't work in a room with a mediator and evidence. Linda never looked at me. Not once. As they walked away, Frank murmured something to Ethan, something meant to sound paternal. Ethan didn't follow, he didn't chase, he didn't apologize for me. He turned to me instead and said, "I'm sorry." I studied his face. "For what?" "For letting it get here," he said, his voice cracked. "For treating your boundaries like a problem to manage instead of a line to defend." I could have unloaded years of resentment in that moment. I could have made him crawl. Part of me wanted to. But I was tired, and I was holding a baby who deserved parents who weren't living inside Linda's shadow. "So what happens now?" I asked. Ethan swallowed. "I'm going to therapy, alone at first. And we set rules, written ones, and if my mom crosses them, we step back, no debates." It sounded like the right answer. It also sounded like the first time he'd ever said "we" and meant it. I didn't forgive him instantly. This wasn't a movie. Trust doesn't come back because someone has a breakthrough in a mediation room. But I stayed, on conditions. I made him send one message to Linda and Frank, concise and final. "The name is not changing. Our boundaries are not negotiable. If you want a relationship with our child, you will respect us as parents. Further harassment will end contact." Linda didn't reply. And Carol did, of course, from some new number, because people like her always find a way to keep speaking. "One day you'll regret this." I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I already regretted something, that I'd spent so much of my pregnancy trying to earn peace from people who only understood power. Months passed. Linda didn't show up at our door. She didn't get to. Ethan followed through with therapy. He stopped sharing his location. He stopped answering calls that were really interrogations. We allowed one short visit in a neutral place when our son was older, public, timed, no photos posted online, no James comments, no church announcements. Linda held him like she was holding a prize, and I watched her the entire time. The moment she started to slip into her old tone, "My baby, our legacy," Ethan stood up and said, "We're leaving now." We left. And the world didn't end. It turned out the thing Ethan feared most, his mother's disapproval, was survivable. Tyler finalized his separation. He looked lighter the next time I saw him, like someone who'd stopped carrying other people's scripts. Megan moved back in with her parents for a while. I heard through the grapevine that Linda told everyone Tyler abandoned family values, which was her way of saying he refused to be controlled. And my son grew into his name, our name, like it had been waiting for him all along. Here's what I learned, in the simplest way I can say it. One, boundaries feel mean only to people who benefit from you having none. Two, tradition is not the same as entitlement. One is shared, the other is enforced. 3. Money tied to compliance is not help, it's a leash. 4. If your partner won't protect you in private, they won't magically protect you in public until they choose to change. 5. The moment someone says, "We're taking this to court," you stop debating feelings and start documenting facts. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing the name, locking down the hospital, and drawing a line so hard it ended up in a legal file? Or was I right to treat a name as the warning sign it really was? And if you want more stories like this, family drama, updates, and endings that actually feel real, subscribe to the channel because I've got plenty more coming. Because the aftertaste of this whole thing wasn't victory. It was the realization that the people who call you selfish for protecting your peace were never asking for love. They were asking for access.